then if you do that once a week for 8 weeks, you'll maintain all your strength benefits. You're not going to lose it. Okay? When will I notice a difference? Okay, these are clearly very vastly different. 14 days, you'll see neural adaptations. You'll start to feel good, all right? Even from going twice a week, you'll be like, oh. All right? 8 weeks, you'll be like, all right? But your research does show 6 weeks is the bare minimum that you'll see meaningful changes. When I say meaningful, it's anything that's going to translate over to something worthwhile on race day. Less than that, you might see improvements of like 1, maybe 2%. But in research world, we wouldn't call that meaningful. We want meaningful. So meaningful is more like 4 to 5%, okay? And that happens, some research says 6 weeks. I always like to say 8 weeks is your minimum before you see it. 12 weeks is where you really notice it, okay? So if you're like, no, Ironman is coming up. It's okay, you can get the 14 days. All year round? No. Periodize it just like you do with your strength training, your endurance training, okay? And remember, it's going to change, right? You might do Ironman, half Ironman in December and go, oh, I didn't know my hammy's cramped, got to focus on that. Oh, they're fixed, okay. Now let's go back to that calf strength. Or now I have this niggle, let's focus on that. Or I've signed up for whatever it is, okay, ultra run, whatever it is. Periodize your strength training. Peak racing, you signed up for all these races, you're a little bit over ambitious, drop to once a week for a few weeks, that's fine. Okay, periodize it just like you do with your endurance training. Won't I get huge? No. All right, so this is one of the most common questions. The strength training parameters I've given you are not your 3 sets of 10, okay? They are not your muscular bulking. Also, to increase muscle mass, it's bloody hard. It's really, really hard to actually do that, especially with endurance training. Research shows us consistently, time and time again, that your strength training with endurance training, your endurance training sends cellular pathways that signal no hypertrophy because you don't have enough energy to do that, okay? Also, you're in completely the wrong set and rep range. People go, oh, I'm gonna do that. I'm like, are you in there doing 4 sets of 10, giving yourself 45 to 60 seconds of rest, and then, I would say then eating the house down, but we definitely do that part. But it's the wrong stimulus anyway, and you're not gonna bulk from it. All of the studies that look at strength training and endurance athletes, including mine, intra-athletes, all showed there was no change in overall weight, there was no change in muscle mass. Those that did DEXA scans also showed there was no change. Okay, what they did actually find was there was a decrease in fat mass. Okay, yay. All right. I don't have time, I know. But it can even be simpler than what I've shown you. You could pick one activation and one mindset. There's 2 of the best studies that I refer to all the time, okay, done by the same group of researchers. They took the French national running team that didn't make it to the Olympics and the cycling team that didn't make it to the Olympics. All that they gave them for 12 weeks, 4 sets of 4 squats. Kid you not, okay? 3 times a week. I don't know if this is how they walked into the gym. They walked into the gym, okay? They had a couple little warm-up sets. Then they did 4 squats, 3 rack, 90 seconds of rest. If they could leave more than 1 rep in reserve, the researchers added 2.5 kilos. Okay, so it was heavy, that's the key. Another 4. That was it, 3 times a week. Took them like 15 minutes, okay? In both the runners and the cyclists. The runners significantly improved their time trial and their running economy, okay? And this was already national level runners. Same with the cyclists, all right? Meaningful, proper meaningful. So you can make it really simple. And then people always come to me and they got oodles of time. They're like, can I do more? Because they're injured, okay? So I always say, you've got to have a lot of time when you're injured. Avoid that. Just do your strength. Think of it as like your, I would say insurance, but none of this is going to work if you got your training load silly, okay? So that's always my little disclaimer. But think of it as your insurance. Okay, oh, that was a lot of talking. I'm so sorry. But we'll have time for questions, and please ask because I do have to go home and tag team with Nick. So unfortunately, I won't see you at the end. The biggest thing that you could do to help me is just give me a follow, and if you like anything that's helpful, please save it, share it, like it, please let me know, because I spend like, a whole lot of my life doing these posts. Like, they're pretty good, but I'm like, this is really hard, and then someone's like, your sound quality is bad. I'm like, what did you get free information? Anyway, so please, I'm the distance doctor. There's a QR code there if you want to follow, but you'll get a heap of information. There's also a link to my YouTube, and I've got heaps of info out there. But I'm sure you're sick of hearing me. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
No, you go.
Well, I was just going to say, like you said, it's kind of hard sometimes to fit strength training in, because I know it's an excuse, but I feel like the thing that is hard is then rocking up to your next session sore. So like, say for example, if you say, okay, do 2 strength sessions per week, is there like a better day to pair it with? Say for example, if you're already doing a strength or a bike, what would you recommend?
It's a very good question actually, and probably the most common question that I get, scheduling it. So keep your hard days hard and your easy days easy. The most common mistake that I see people do is they put their strength training on their rest days. I'm like, no, or they're really easy days, because they're meant to be there for your body to adapt. Strength training, especially to get the loads right, still induce a change, okay? So I generally recommend that you do them if you can, in the afternoon of your harder days. So say you've done a harder ride or a run in the morning, do it that afternoon, because you can modify the weights using your reps in reserve of your strength training, so you can make it lighter. You can remove, the one thing I didn't put in here is plyometrics. Plyometrics are also chef's kiss, but we have to be a little bit cautious when it comes into those, because they're a lot extra load on your bones and on your tendons as well, but they're really good. But I wouldn't do them on the afternoon after a hard ride or run. But I would put them generally in the afternoon of harder days. Is generally the way to go. I would avoid them like the night before a hard session in the morning. But I always say to people, and this is just based off the research, that you need to give yourself generally a 2-week buffer, where when you start strength training, you're starting to increase, well, it's not even increasing loads. If you've got a new strength program, it's a new stimulus. You're gonna feel a bit sore, okay? But you shouldn't be like, sore. You should just be, okay, yeah, I did gym yesterday, all right? That kind of sore. If it's more than that, it's probably a bit too much, okay? But you'll feel like that for 2 weeks. And you just have to pick it at a time that then you can deal with that. Weirdly enough, triathletes love it. They're like, oh yeah. Or they go, can I do it on a Friday? I'm like, what if you do it on a weekend? Got a 6-hour run on a Saturday, 2-hour run on a Sunday. Want to be sore? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Just be careful, because you don't want to induce excessive fatigue, right? But if you're used to it and you're okay with the fatigue, often a lot of people quite like that. But you have to decide for you. Okay, but you just be really smart with the loads to start with. Give yourself at least that 2-week buffer and slowly build up. Awesome.
What's the best at home sort of work stuff to do then?
I actually down there. There's a couple of YouTube videos on exercises that you can do at home with no equipment to replicate heavy strength training, but you want to think anything with that eccentric load. But the trouble is, to get a meaningful change with bodyweight exercises, you've got to do that eccentric load, which does make you sore. Okay, so you definitely have to give yourself a 2-week buffer, but things like, for example, a reverse Nordic, so you're kneeling and you're slowly lowering back and coming back up again, they're really good for hip flexors and quads, really, really good. Isometrics can be a really good option for at home, so if you have anything that you can hold on to heavy at home to load up through your tendons, like 3 sets of 30-second holds really heavy, driving through the big toe, can actually still get some really good tendon adaptations. The side planks are really good, scap push-ups in there, so you're looking a little bit more at the motor control, muscular endurance stuff, but you still want to pick 1 or 2 exercises that are going to replicate the heavy, bring those down, like reverse airborne lunges, so like a single leg reverse down, keeping your leg up and up, really for strength and motor control in one movement. So you can do it, but it does take a little bit of like creativeness.
So I've just been doing like really huge reps instead, so I've been doing like 50 sit-ups and then 50 burpees and then 50 squats with like 30 kilos and then 50 tricep dips and then doing like 3 sets of them every day.
I'm really glad that you've actually said this, because I'm really sorry to burst that bubble for you, but you really just be inducing fatigue, and the stimulus that you're creating is the same as endurance training. Okay, so generally when you look at research and strength training, the maximum reps that's in any of the textbooks, all right, is 20. Okay, that's the highest end of muscular endurance. I don't think I've ever prescribed anything greater than 20 reps. One time though, I had a dude come to me for rehab and he's like, oh, my other physio told me to add a rep each time I go to the pool, and now I'm doing 3 sets of 99. I'm about to hit 100. And you know what? I was like, don't hit 100. He's like, what? And then he told me he swims and he's like, my shoulders are effed, Kate, like they're totally fucked. I'm like, could you doing 3 sets of 99 shoulder and chin rotations? And he goes, I have to get to the pool 25 minutes earlier to do them. And then I swim there, my shoulders are absolutely ruined. And I'm like, And he's like, I don't understand. I'm like, I do. Wow, you're such a good physio, Kate. I'm like, no, that's just bad. No, but there is a clear difference between if you're doing things like that, you'll get a little bit of fitness, but you won't get strength. Okay, so they're different stimulus. It's the same with big hill work. Okay, big hill work, riding up hills, totally different adaptations. One is muscular adaptations, one is cardiovascular adaptations. Different. Good question. You're like, good, cross those out. Unless you like them, go for it. You have a question? Wonderful. Anyone else? Yes.
Shin splints.
Oh, ciliate strength, my friend. Yeah. Lots of ciliate strength. Shin splints can also come from foot intrinsic weakness as well. Actually, there's some really good studies. There's a very good point. All your motor control stuff, do them with shoes off. Whatever you can do, shoes off. There is enough good quality research now to show that foot intrinsic strength is directly related to running economy and the injuries, okay? So, and the good thing is isolated footwork is not necessarily any better than just doing exercise with your shoes off. Okay, so lots of foot intrinsic work, lots of cilious work, and training load management is the biggest thing. So it's just managing your training load and increasing your cadence. Actually, I've got one on shin splints and I've got like 3 videos on managing it. Yeah, have a look.
Yeah, she's on or she's on?
Off. Whenever you can, off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you just get so much more out of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. I feel like I took up the whole seminar. Sorry. It's like dinner time. Okay, no other questions? Awesome. Thank you I didn't see anyone scan the QR code. No. This took me a long time to figure out how to do that actually.
Podcast, which is genuinely, like, I listen to it, basically.
We had a good one with Crowy as well actually.
Yeah, I just finished that.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank
Or
you.
if you want anything from me, you can also contact me on here. Okay, so I'm obviously just a busso girl, so if you need help with anything, come see me.
I think based on the paper presentation, I need to do a rest period.
I know.
If you don't want to go to the toilet, she can leave that one.
Also like yeah, I was like, no, you can see them all sort of from the front. Really sort of.
So good. Oh, there you go. I did. Thank you.
So, I know it's a lot of sitting, so please, if anyone does need to like go, have a drink or walk, won't be offended during the presentation. But we're going to talk about nutrition now. So we've had good preso, and then we're going to have someone talk about bike fitting after this. Just for a show of hands, who is doing Busso full this year? 70.3. Awesome. And who's doing maybe something next year? A race on the cards? Awesome, cool. Well, yeah, my name's Lauren. I have met a few of you before. There's some familiar faces, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm a dietitian, and yeah, today we're going to be talking a little bit about nutrition. I could probably talk about nutrition for like 7 days, but we don't have 7 days, so I'm just going to try and keep it relevant so that you can hopefully get something out of it for your next 6 weeks and 1 day of training. So I'm not doing the race, so I feel super relaxed, but it must be peaking for you guys, so you're probably feeling pretty tired. Again, appreciate that you're all here on a Saturday night when you could probably be in bed, feet up, but you're here learning, so how good is that? I don't think my presentation is going to be as entertaining as Kate's, so hopefully you don't fall asleep, but we're going to start off with energy metabolism, because before I come at you and say, we need to eat carbs, I think it's important to understand why carbs are important. So ultimately, what this graph is showing us is the types of fuels that our body burns as we go through different exercise intensities. So pretty much we've got 2 main sources of fuel for exercise. We've got carbohydrates, which is glycogen and glucose, And then we've got fat as well, so triglycerides and free fatty acids. You'll notice no protein here. We love protein. Protein's great for building muscles, but if you are burning protein during an Ironman, something has gone drastically wrong, you probably need to be in the hospital. We're either talking rhabdo or malnutrition. So really when it comes to energy, we are prioritizing fats and carbohydrates. We use different types of fuel as we go through different training sessions. So if we think about like your Sunday long run, we're breathing, we can get a lot of oxygen into our muscles. Our body can use fat as energy because it's a lot slower burning but higher yielding in terms of energy. And when we're going race pace, running down the red carpet in Busso, we're at that max limit. So we need really quick energy, and that's what carbohydrates are. I love a good analogy sometimes, so hopefully this might stick with you. But someone once explained to me fats and carbs as, if you think about a campfire, you've got like those big logs on the bottom that take a little while to kind of heat up, but they last for a really long time. So think of that as your fats, and then the little sticks that you pop on top and catch fire really quick, but also burn out really quick, that's your carbohydrates, they say, your gel that you're consuming on the bike. So just a really good way to look at how our body utilizes energy. We're going to mainly talk about carbohydrates because we love carbs, and I'm sure everyone racing in December is not going at zone 1 pace. We're probably trying to get a PB. When we burn carbohydrates, like I said, we've got glucose and glycogen, and we can think about these as our internal or our external energy stores. So with our internal energy stores, that's pretty much muscle glycogen, so what we build up through our day-to-day diet, so carb load in the 2 to 3 days leading into your race. And then we've got our external carbohydrates, which is what we're putting into our body during the race. So we've got the pre-race carbohydrate stores that we build up, and then we've got the intra-race carb stores that we're feeding ourselves for, multiple hours on end. When it comes to energy metabolism, I've said, it's exercise intensity. That is the main reason, and it is, but it's also helpful, and I sometimes think interesting, to know that there are other circumstances that might impact it. For example, heat or altitude. Busso is probably the flattest course on the Ironman circuit, so we don't need to be thinking about altitude. It can be hot though. When we are, overheating, or potentially, we've got clients that race the Marathon des Sables, or however you say, over in Morocco, very hot. When our body is under stress, again, we need quick energy, so our body is going to rely more on carbohydrates. What we eat in our day-to-day diet, if you follow more of a ketogenic, high fat, low carb diet, your body is more predisposed to use fat as fuel because it's more efficient with that. Same if you eat a very high carbohydrate diet, your body's going to be very efficient at burning it during exercise. What you eat before training status, if you're a newbie versus a very experienced athlete, that's why we see people like on the Tour de France consuming 240 grams of carbs per hour. There's always a lot of interesting articles that come out around Tour de France time, and the reason they are able to intake so many grams of carbohydrates per hour is because one, they've obviously got the best teams around them, so much science, but they're very well trained. Their bodies are so efficient at oxidizing either fats or carbohydrates. With carbs, again, I think I'm not here to tell everybody how many calories they should be eating or how many grams of carbohydrates, but I just popped this in here for you to do a little quick check of your own diet, because as endurance athletes, I would say carbohydrates are the predominant macronutrient for everyone, especially at this stage in training when we're 6 weeks out from a race. You can really taper it down. For example, is it a rest day? Are we doing a 6-hour training ride? You can taper your carbohydrate intake day to day based on what your training load is doing. And this is to make sure that you've got enough fuel in the tank to really get you through your sessions on the day.
What does BWD mean?
Oh, sorry, so grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Sorry, yeah, good question. So yeah, say for example, rest day, 3 grams of carbs per kilo of your body weight. So again, it really personalizes it from me to you. We all have different carbohydrate intakes. There's no one prescription for everyone. This is a good way, again, just kind of following on from that previous slide. It can just help you maybe change your diet throughout, the months or the weeks. Is just, hey, you've got a big training day, don't be afraid to eat a little bit more. If it's a rest day, naturally just pull back because your body doesn't really need as much, and it will instead rely on fats as fuel. In terms of carbohydrates, I know probably people maybe know where it comes from, but when we think about fruit, bread, pasta, when we eat it, some of it gets used immediately because it's circulating in our blood, but what we don't quite use immediately gets stored as muscle glycogen, and that's that internal or endogenous energy source that really powers us through those longer distance events. It's stored in the muscle.
this is what it looks like apparently at a microscopic level, and you'll see all those little branches, and that makes it really easy for our body to cleave under stress. So the reason it's like that is so when we're exercising race pace, our body can very quickly break that down instead of it being like a very tight little ball. Something to be, I guess, considerate of as well is when we do store glycogen in the muscles, for every 1 gram of, say, carbohydrates that is stored, we hold about 3 to 4 grams of water as well. So when it comes to carbohydrate intake, I feel like people always associate it with weight gain, and I completely understand that it's not necessarily contributing to fat gain. Of course, if you eat protein, fat, or carbs in excess, it can contribute to fat gain over time, but with carbohydrates, largely going to be due to water retention. So why carbohydrates are important, like we've spoken about from the beginning of the presentation, it's that slow burning, kind of sustainable energy supply that we've got. And if you come into a race, especially something like a 70.3 or a full, where we're exceeding that 2.5, 3 hour timeline, you're going to bonk faster, you're going to hit the wall, all those fun terms that we really want to avoid. On that note, carb loading, I know it's, yes, get to eat so many carbs, but depending on your body weight, that can actually be super challenging. Like that slide I showed a few back, pretty much that upper limit is around 10 to 12 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight. And when we think about carbohydrate loading, it's so much more than just like, yum, big bowl of pasta the night before a race. I mean, I usually have pasta anyway, but it's about what you do over the entire day. Everyone is very different. Some people can go to bed comfortably after having a nice big meal. Other people, they're like, no, can't go to bed, I get indigestion, hard to sleep. So I sometimes say to people, make lunch your biggest meal of the day. Like, I know we all look forward to like that big dinner at night, but sometimes that can be a little bit heavy in the stomach going to bed. Spread it out over the day. I love having drinks, lots of snacks over the course of the day. But yeah, if you want something to aim for before busso, anywhere between that 8 to 12 grams per kilo of your body weight is going to work really well. And typically 10 grams is that kind of happy weight. So say you weigh 80 kilos, we're looking at about 800 grams of carbs, which is a lot. Something that makes eating carbs easier, I know it sounds really fun, but anyone that's done a proper carb load knows it's like a chore. I always tell people, kind of spread it out over the course of the day, have regular snacks, meals. My favorite thing to do is just add a liquid carb beverage with every meal. You really want to keep your carb load as close to your normal diet as possible. We don't want to try, a new restaurant or eat something super random before a race. So, if you're maybe not sure where to start, have a glass of juice with brekkie, have a chalky milk for morning tea, have a iced mocha instead of an iced long black. Those small changes over the day can add up a couple of 100 grams of carbs. You're staying hydrated, you're not getting extra fiber, and it's yummy. So always goes down the treat. And yeah, like I said, avoid kind of anything new, nothing spicy or oily. You don't want to be, that one person taking up heaps of time in the Portaloo the next day. But yeah, just a couple of things to make your next carb load easy. Pre-training, so these are a couple of strategies that I say is always good to think about if you're someone that maybe struggles to know what to go for. So we want to keep it low in fiber, low in fat, the reason being both fiber and fat, fantastic for us, great for our health, but they're just a bit slower digesting. So when we think about exercise, you might want to get that extra 15 minutes sleep, so you've only got 10 minutes to eat something before you head out the door. You don't want to rip into, say, like a Carmen's nut bar or like 2 kiwi fruits, which are really high in fiber, because it's going to sit in your stomach, might need to go to the toilet. So a really good example could just be some Rusk cakes. We're really prioritizing carbohydrates, and again, timing is a very personal one. I can kind of eat 10 minutes after, run 10 minutes after eating, but other people need an hour, and that's okay. But you're going to get so much more benefit from eating before training than skipping it altogether, especially if you are training for, a 70.3 or beyond. This, we're going to break it down to like, hey, I don't have a lot of time and or I feel crap when I eat before exercise, or I wake up with plenty of time to eat. So this is for anyone that, is maybe in that I don't have time to eat before I head out the door, or eating before training makes me feel sick. And I completely understand so many people say that, but I sometimes think if you do feel unwell eating before training, you're either maybe eating the wrong thing or you're not allowing yourself enough time. And I know like when you're in the depth of training, you want that extra sleep, but I feel like the benefit that you can get from just that, getting up 15 minutes, have half a banana, it's not a lot, have one precision chew, 3 lolly snakes, that gives you 30 grams of carbs, and it's such a small amount of volume as well. So go for something small. This is a really great place to start, and also something great to have, 15 to 20 minutes before you hop in the water for the swim as well.
When you've got a little bit more time and or your gut has been conditioned and you can comfortably eat before training, we want to go for more that 1 to 2 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight. So this is going to be a really nice, hearty, sustainable amount of carbohydrates that's going to circulate the blood, give you that kind of quick energy, but also there's a lot that we're probably going to store some of it as muscle glycogen as well. So we're thinking here things like wheat bix, porridge, bagels, anything like that. Ultimately, anything above 50 grams of carbs, maybe you could eat that, 10 minutes later you're out the door, that's awesome. But these types of meals typically, maybe you need more of an hour, hour and a half to let it digest. This is a good example of how you can combine them for race day. So wake up, a couple of hours before, depending on what your schedule's like, you want to go for something a little bit more sustainable. So we're thinking like porridge or wheat bix, something like that. And then when you're down there, wetsuits on, getting ready for the swim, we just now want to give those little tweaks in the fire so that when your heart rate gets up, you're in the water and you're freaking out because there's so many people there. We just got some nice quick carbs that our body's going to utilize and help us get through the swim. So that's a really good way to kind of spread it out on a race. And that's what I do as well. I usually go wheat bix and a couple of lollies. I'm celiac, so I can't have lolly snakes. I have to have a very specific brand of gluten-free lollies. But pretty much that's what I do, and I really love doing it, so I would recommend for muscle. Intra-training, so obviously a couple of questions. I'm hoping we're 6 weeks out, everyone's probably got an idea of what they're going to do for their fueling. But if you don't, or you're getting ready for next year, these are always a few good things that I think you should ask yourself when building your intra-race plan. So, hydration, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but are you a big sweater? Do you not sweat much? Do you always see salt crusted on your face? Are you a salty sweater? What carb intake per hour are we aiming for? Do you feel comfortable at 40 grams? Or are you someone that pushes the limit and you can sit comfortably at 100 grams? Do you like solid foods and shells? All these types of things can really play into what you end up having during a race. If you've looked into nutrition, you've probably heard 30 to 90 grams, and that's really the most common recommendation for intra-training nutrition, which I definitely agree with. There's a lot of studies these days kind of exploring that upper limit as well. So we typically see intakes of up to 120 grams of carbs per hour, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But like I alluded to earlier, we also got professional elite Tour de France races going 200, 240. I'm pretty sure even Christian Blumenfeld or Gustav or someone recently spoke about having 180 to 200 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So I suppose the sky's the limit. But we pretty much want to be sitting around here. And again, you can periodize it. Maybe you're not doing 4-hour rides, you're doing 2-hour rides. So, okay, cool, we don't really need 90 grams, but maybe around that 60 to 70 grams is a better number. This is just kind of elaborating on the upper end of the limit. So there was a really great study done on ultra runners, and what they looked at was the amount of carbohydrates per hour, so around 60 to 90 and 120, so the typical recommendations, and then pushing that upper limit. And the huge benefit, I suppose, that came with the upper limit is not necessarily just exercise performance during the race, but actually improved recovery afterwards. And I sometimes think we need to almost start looking at our nutrition as pre-recovery instead of just waiting to finish our training to recover, because when we're exercising, we're depleting all of our muscle glycogen, we're using all that fuel, that's causing a lot of fatigue, muscle breakdown. If you're giving yourself a lot of fuel during your workout, you're having less muscle breakdown, you've got more energy available after your session to kickstart that recovery. So yeah, just a really interesting point. You don't need to go out there and consume 120 grams of carbs per hour, but I suppose something that favors that upper end, so say the 90 to 120, is that it's also not just about your performance during the race now, it's about your recovery afterwards as well. And this is just following on from that study. So ultimately, these are all just enzymes in the body, and as you can see, with the higher amount, we've got less markers of muscle damage, which is always a plus, especially if maybe you do multi-day races, or obviously an Ironman or 70.3 in itself is humongous, but yeah, super interesting, I find. Again, just a super simple breakdown. You can really choose your own adventure when it comes to intra-training nutrition. There's so many options, like Kate said, there's a billion options out there. This is just a few simple examples of how easy it is to actually hit those arbitrary kind of numbers. You can do it so easily with gels, or you can give yourself, a little bit of a combination there. Really, it's about what works well for you. I always encourage people, trial and error. Jake's got so many good options over there. If you're not really sure, pick one of every flavour, see how it works. Don't buy a 20-pack and then hate it and you've spent $72 on it. Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for trial and error. I think you've got to find what you like, and don't always be influenced on Instagram. Again, just super simple ways. 90 grams of carbs per hour seems like so much, but it's actually really achievable to break down when you're smart with how you're making your choices. So again, don't need to do this. I'm hoping everyone's kind of got a little bit of an idea as to what they like, but just super kind of easy ways that you can actually achieve a really high intake of 90 grams per hour. So for anyone that has ever heard of this, once you start going above 60 grams of carbs per hour, we need to think about the glucose to fructose to maltodextrin ratio. I sometimes say to people, if you're buying commercially made products like Morton, like Precision, they've done the guesswork for you. You really don't need to be a scientist or really pay attention to it. But if you're someone that likes to make your own drink mixes, just uses fruit, then okay, maybe we need to start thinking about it. And the reason this is because in our gut, we've got little receptors which are pretty much like doors, and they let certain types of carbohydrates in. Now, like anything, you know, it gets saturated at a limit. So we've got the SGLT1, which is pretty much sodium glucose transporter. That can comfortably pass